You know about the retrograde ejaculation thing, right?
No.
Well, this is crazy. So and I have a story that you have to be careful with this, not to too wild with this. So there is this thing about, there's a lot on the internet about semen retention and chi, right?
Yeah.
After orgasm, here we're talking about males and females, but in males, after ejaculation, there's an increase in the hormone prolactin, which makes you very mellow. And that sets the refractory period. And during that time, you're not getting another erection. You're not having sex again. This is why drugs that increase dopamine sometimes are kind of pro-sexual drugs. But if people take too much of them, then they're just like all gas pedal, but they're not relaxed enough to actually get an erection, right? This is the cocaine thing, right? So, sex is a dance between arousal and relaxation.
Right.
Tantra understands that, and they try and bring people into kind of a mellow plane where they are controlling all that rise and fall of arousal over and over again. That's the idea. So there is this notion of certain Asian cultures have talked about retaining chi by, instead of allowing semen to leave the body during orgasm, there's a practice of pulling it back in by inhaling and clamping essentially the muscles around the prostate. So I have a friend who got really into experimenting with this. His wife happened to be in the kind of Qigong community, was really interested into Qigong, and he did this, but he developed terrible prostatitis. So you have to be really careful. But he was walking around feeling like he had twice as much energy as he ever did before.
So right before he's about to bust, he sucks it back in.
Yeah. And again, you can mess yourself up with this,
That's crazy.
It's crazy. It's crazy. I'm not promoting this, but there is this notion of retrograde ejaculation.
When you retrograde, do you ever actually ejaculate?
They do. They recommend they do it like once a week or something like that. We've got sunlight, exercise, stress control through physiological, the double inhale, long exhale through the mouth. Try and be a nose breather and not a mouth breather. Listen, I also think it's a really good idea, in addition to seeking good social connection, et cetera. I think it's good to have some practice that makes you more resilient. And I'm a big fan of cold showers and ice baths and cold. They have great banyas here in New York. Yeah. And, put yourself into uncomfortable cold 3 or 5 days a week. It's not about the metabolism increase as much as is the mental training of doing something that sucks. I mean, David Goggins has this right. And actually, this brings us back to the importance of story. I mean, David is a guy who just keeps pushing himself to do the hard thing. But I think the reason he's so effective as a communicator is because we understand that he had to go through a journey that was incredible, from being this 300+ pound guy to that. And he's still doing it. So we're like in his story. He's still going. And so I think all of us would do well to push ourselves to be uncomfortable. And then in the cold, what's beautiful is after you get out of the cold, and I like to end on warm shower, you do a minute or 3 minutes of cold or get in the ice bath or whatever it is, you get this huge long lasting surge in dopamine that sets your mood and your positivity for hours and hours. This has been shown by data. Wow. And so I think it's a wonderful tool. And these are basically zero cost tools. They take time. Yeah. I wish I had developed these tools in my 20s. Yeah. I built them gradually. I've been working out a long time and little things here and there. But if you start them early, they stay with you. And I always think the best way to outperform everybody in your business, or at least keep up in very competitive business, and Joe Rogan is a beautiful example of this, is to take excellent care of your health. People who are really good at their craft invest in taking really good care of themselves. Yeah. And then, of course, that includes avoid toxic relationships. Just avoid them. They ruin people's lives. They'll ruin your life. Like, just do your best to be in healthy relationships, and then everything's good. And I don't say that lightly. Like, that's a big one. I've seen so many people who were doing great, but because they got caught up in some drama, they just nosedived the whole thing. So those would be the recommendations. There are a bunch of others, and I'll keep spouting them out on the internet.